a boss in Flutter. We're having one of our organizers, who's Danvik. Danvik is really amazing software developer. He's self-employed. He has his own company called Infinity Soft Technology. He is a co-organizer for Flutter Kenya and also a co-organizer in DroidCon KE, which is the largest Android developer conference in Africa currently. He is an open sorcerer. He likes to call himself an open sorcerer. I think we can steal the sorcerer name. I think that's interesting. Yes, and also he is the lead developer in Android in DroidCon KE. He's the one who's like leading the DroidCon KE Flutter application, and he's literally the master, showing us the way. And also, the coolest thing about him is he has developed a couple of packages in Flutter. There is this one that I really love, and I've actually worked with it, called Form. You guys can check it out, and it has really cool, interesting features like chips input in it, such that, let me give you an example. You see, when you're writing an email and maybe you want to have more than one email person, like you add another email address, it autofills and, you know, shows the person that you want to send an email to. So that kind of a thing is what is incorporated in the Forms package that he has developed. And he's such a cool developer, and he has helped a lot of us in debugging and, you know, doing cool stuff whenever we are stuck. So Danvik, thank you so much for agreeing to speak on our webinar today. And I wish to welcome you, and please take the lead and wow us in this boasting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Candy. Those are so many flattering words. Now, I think I'll just start, because today's talk will actually not be a talk per se. It will be a code lab where we'll be doing REST, integrating REST into your app. So I've started by just making, since 1 hour of code lab is quite short. So I decided to just, instead of starting a new app, I decided to set up a few things just for the sake of time. So I'll just go through what we have. We have a login screen, and we have just have 2 screens currently. We have the login screen and the home screen. The home screen is just empty. The login screen is the one that has a bit of UI, where I have an email and a password for someone to fill in, and for it to be authenticated on a server. I've hosted a very minute server here with npm. So I'll just start by running the server so that it runs in the background as we do Flutter. So as Katie mentioned, I've also developed like a few packages. So there's one I'm using here. So what I have currently is this Flutter form builder, which she has mentioned, and just a few things there, here and there. So, and shared preferences. I don't think we're going to use providers. I'll just remove it. So that's where we start. Basically, there's just 2 things to start with, and we start there. So number 1, this is going to be a bit of an opinionated session, because I'll be using some packages which I prefer, and I would really like people to have a look at them. They have helped me so much. So I'll start by installing them. So here we have a package called DIO. I think this is the package you're going to use for. Let me just showing up. So I'll just, can everyone see my screen right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. So this package is called DIO. I usually call it DIO. I don't know the correct way of saying it. So I call it DIO. So I'll just install DIO. This is the package. Basically, it's an alternative to HTTP, the HTTP package provided by Flutter. So we will install the latest version. And also we will install a package called Stetho, Flutter Stetho. Flutter Stetho is a package that helps you debug HTTP from Chrome DevTools. We'll just see how it works. So I'll install the dev version, since it's the one that is compatible with the latest versions of Flutter. So I'll just do that, copy that. I may have to go at a bit of a breaking speed because of time, because we just have 1 hour. So if you feel left behind, just let us know and we will find a way to catch you up. So we have DIO and Flutter Stetho. So for Flutter Stetho, the thing you need to do is actually just to set it up, to initialize it. We will see how it works later on. For now, let's just initialize it. So we can say if we are in debug mode, then we can initialize Stetho. So Stetho. Stetho dot initialize. I think that's that for Stetho. And then next, you're going to create a folder. We'll name it utils, which will be our utilities folder. So utils. Then in the utils folder, what we're going to do is we are going to declare our REST client class. So I'll just call it REST client. That. So it's just a class. REST client. Then inside it, you're going to have a DIO parameter. Then we are also going to just create a getter for it. Then we can create our, let's just import DIO. Then we can create our constructor for the class, which will take in basically what DIO takes is when you're creating one. Let me just write one right now. Basically, when you are setting it up, it will require, it's an optional field. It will require best options for that REST client, which maybe we may not use it right now. But basically, what to do is that when we initialize, we can just when the class is initialized, we can just set up a DIO instance. So with the options that are presented by the user, if any, then let's just make this create class, which will actually take in the best options. Here, there is not much to be done right now. So what I'll just do is I'll just say DIO equals a new instance of DIO with the options given. And then you can just, I think that will be it for now. We can return the DIO. Let's just create a new one and then return it. So DIO is our REST client. Then I think we will download also Getit that we'll use to, because we don't want to instantiate the REST client everywhere we want to use it. Maybe we can declare it once and use it every other time. So it's a service locator. So we'll just install it. get it, and then add it into our package.yaml pubspec. So after doing that, then I think the next thing you're going to do is just we're going to declare that instance, and we will use it later on. So get it. Don't know if I've installed. Okay. Get instance. Then you can register. Can register a singleton. Sorry. And our singleton will be the REST client. So I think that's that. We are done with setting it up. Now the next thing we're going to do is make an auth service so that we can make use of this form that we have here. So the next thing, I'm going to create another folder, name it services, where we will put our REST service now. So for example, we can start with our auth service. Start. Then it's a class auth service. Then here we can just use a static function for now logging in. We actually don't need to return anything from this, so we'll just say login. Then from login, we'll be getting the login credentials in the form of a map of string and dynamic, which we'll just call credentials. Then that's that. I think it needs to be asynchronous. Then we'll have our response that we will be expecting from the, response that we'll be expecting from the server. And then you can wait for it. Then use getIt to fetch the REST client that we set up. Then from it, you can get our DIO. It's supposed to be a function. Then with that, we'll just post. Now, post will require number one, a URL. So I'm just going to use my local URL here from my local network. So that will be HTTP 192.168.100.104, and then /auth/login. So with that, we now need to put the data, which will actually require just a map. So we'll just pass our credentials there. I think that will be that for it. So now what we'll get is a token, a JWT token from the server. So the token will be equal to our response.data. Then it will return a map. So I'm just going to fetch the access token. Then we're going to store that Obviously, you'll find different ways of doing it, but what you're doing is just storing the token in shared preferences. Shared pref, get instance, then we can set that string that we've gotten from the server. It will be pref dot set string. So just set the string under token as the key, and the value will be the token that we received. So just before we go ahead, let's just look at how our API looks like. So basically, our REST API will have a login, which we will send the username and password. For this instance, we have Bruno. Then if we send, we basically as expected to receive the token. And after we've gotten the token, we can be able to access products that are there in the database. So if I don't have, say for example, if I want to fetch one product and I don't have authentication enabled, then it should at least say it will give us an error about authentication. So that's basically what you're working with right now. So we've developed one for accessing the login. Now what we're going to do is now integrate that into our screen, our login screen. So you may have, if you haven't used Form Builder before, you may have issues with it. You may have issues understanding how it's doing its work. But for now, I think I'll just ignore that problem and go ahead with how it works, with how we are supposed to work with the REST API. If you have time, you can go through. I'll share the code so that you can just go through and see how it works. It actually helps you a lot if you're trying to make a form. You don't have to write so many things like controllers, text controllers, and whatnot to fetch the information. So what I'm going to do here is that I'm just going to use a try catch, which I'll catch an exception here. Then we can say, first of all, let's make this function to be asynchronous. And then we will say, you can just await out service dot login. Now with the credentials, I think the credentials from builder, we just say from builder, we get the key, get the current state, and then dot value. That will give us a map of the email and password. I think that's all. Then if we catch an error, I think what we can do is just set the error to show set the error to show under the password field. If there's any error that will come from the server, we will just show it under the password field. So for example, if I put a wrong email or password, that's what I'll do. Then if this password is if the login is successful, then what you can do is just navigate to the home page. Now get out of context. I think we just push replacement, material page route with the builder. That will take in the context and will return the home page or home screen. So I think, so basically what we're trying to do here is that number one, we check if our form is valid. Then we try to log in. If login succeeds, we go to homepage. If it doesn't succeed, then the error is set. This error text is what is shown under the password field. So for example, let's just see if our code works. I think there's a bit of an issue somewhere. Response. Let me just Stop and start. I don't know how long that will take. But in the meantime, we can just be talking about Stetho and see how it works. I think Stetho, the way it works is that you'll be able to access Stetho from, okay, that means to have to, the app will need to start. But basically Stetho, what it does is that it makes you able to debug from Chrome DevTools. So basically every transaction or every request, you'll just be able to see it within your Chrome. So that's what we will use it for. I think it's building now. Okay, I think you are good to go. So basically, if for example, I use a wrong username, the password, again. Okay, I think I didn't set the error. So we'll just say, we'll just get the error that we get, to string. So if we try to log in, there's some kind of error somewhere. Can register lazy singleton. That should work. Let's rebuild and try to see if it works. Again. So basically, I think any error that we have will show down here. So from here, we can see that there's an error. Let me try to see where the issue is coming from. HTTP. Okay, I think I forgot to add the port. So it's running on port 3000. So basically the status error we get is 4.1, but this error doesn't look so good because it is showing the user so much information that they may not really care for. So what we're going to do is that the IO allows us to use something called interceptors, which will intercept the request before it goes or when it comes back, or if there's an error, it will intercept that error. We can use interceptors to do so many things. So for example, here, I'll just create another folder, name it Interceptors. Now we want to write an interceptor for error handling so that it can pass this error and give us more of a useful error so that we can be able to respond appropriately. So what we're going to do is that we're going to create a new file. Let's call it an error interceptor. So we'll have a class called error interceptor that is supposed to extend the interceptor offered by DIO. It's a class. So interceptor. So the way we can react to this error is that we want to, let's take an example of, let's see how it works basically first. So if I enter a wrong password for this user, instead of giving me a token, it will give me this message. So I want to get this message from the from the server and display it instead of displaying this huge error here. So what I'm going to do is say on error, and then we can use a switch to detect which kind of error it is. So basically, if it's a response error, so basically that means if it comes from the server, we can just get the message that the server has sent through. So we'll use the IO error type. If it's an error response, if it's a response error, so we'll just check if the error from the server, if it has data. So basically, if we're getting any data back from the server, then we want to be able to react to fetch that error message. So if it's not null, and also we can say if the response, if it contains a message, basically, if it contains a message, that means the message is not null. Then what we can do is that we can just set the error. The DIO error message that shows, we can just set it to that message that we get from the server. For example, for this case, we are supposed to get back invalid username or password. So I think for now, we're just going to use that specific feature. You can have as many response types. You might need to, for example, if you get back 404 from the server, you may get a whole page HTML. So here you may want to use the interceptor to intercept that error and just put page not found or something like that, so that when it comes here to show on your screen, it doesn't show all the information about the error that you basically it doesn't show the whole page. Instead, it will just show the error that you passed and replaced it with. So for default, I think you can just ignore if it's any other type of error. We just want to see errors from the server. So let's come back to our login screen. So number one, instead of just getting the error and changing it to string, we can just check if the error is a DIO error. So if it's a DIO error, then we can just get a DIO error will have a string called error that we set back there. So we can save that and try again. Sorry, I think there's a mistake I've made somewhere. So what you need to do after declaring an interceptor, now you just come to your DIO class here and do DIO dot interceptors. So interceptors will intercept any request that goes through this class. So here we'll just add the error interceptor. I think that's what I forgot to do. So the error interceptor, we will put it here so that it will intercept any error that comes in, so that we pass that error and actually get the useful information from that error before we go ahead with the response. So if we do that, sorry, has it been built? See. I think I don't need to do this. Maybe I would have done this. just use the class itself. Okay, let's try again. So this is supposed to be an email. Oh, so our error interceptor works. It intercepted the response from the server, extracted the message that we get here, and that's what we showed here. So the biggest advantage of DIO is it has interceptors. Interceptors are very good for doing so many things. For example, apart from the error interceptor, we may want to fetch, let's log in with the correct email first. So the username was Bruno. And the password also Bruno. Another good use of interceptors is, you may want to intercept every request that comes in through HTTP to maybe add the authorization header. I think that is one of the biggest uses that you can have for it. Now we've come here. The next thing we want to do now that we've been able to log in, I think I haven't showed yet how Interceptor works, how a Stetho works. So what Stetho does is that you will, if you have enabled Stetho, you'll be able to see the app, your app here, and it will show, it will enable you to inspect. Now you will see that if I put in any information here and we send to the server, it will indicate in our Chrome DevTools. I know that Flutter has developed some form of network debugger, but I think it still lacks some features which this Stetho provides. So that's why I really advocate the use of it. You can use it even if you're not using DIO. You can use it when you're using the normal HTTP package or any other package you're using for HTTP requests. So here we're just doing it so that we can see that the responses that are going through our app are actually being seen here by our Chrome DevTools. So you can be able to preview and see what kind of responses you're getting. So I think that is very important for anyone who is using HTTP. Okay. Wrong password again. Come on. Oh. It's interesting. So I think we'll just close that for now. Bruno.com. Sorry. Now what we want to do here is to show the products that are in our database from REST. So the next thing we're going to do is set up another service that will fetch the products. Let's name it products service. I think I'll just copy this for the sake of time so that we just edit. So this will be products service. Then we can fetch all. Don't think we'll need this. Then what we're going to get back is going to be a list. And then we're going to use get, not post. Doesn't require any data for get. Then you're just going to products. Then from here, you can just return our response.data. Here is where you will, if you have a product class, you can map through and convert them to product, a list of products instead of a list of map. But for the sake of this tutorial, that's not what we are focusing on. So basically, this will be it. Now, let's go to our homepage and now create a feature builder, which will be able to. I don't like feature builders, but we will just use it for the sake of. So our future will be products service.fetch all. Is that how we named it? Like service.fetch all. So that one works. So in our builder, we'll have obviously the context. It will take in the context and the snapshot of the data that we're getting back. So let's start with the, if there's nothing happening, we'll just write a center and the child will be a circular progress indicator. I think that's good enough. Then you also want to see that, so if we have data, okay, let's start with an error. So if it has an error, you can just use text, which we will center on the screen. Which you can just get the snapshot, error, and convert it to a string. I think that will be enough for our purposes. Maybe you may want to show a toast or anything else. And if we have data, data, then you can return a list view of the products that we have in the server. So list view, let's use the separated list view, item builder, separator builder. I think here we'll just okay, just return a divider. It will require also the index. Item count will be, since you're expecting a string, you can just say snapshot dot data dot length, which will be the length of the items, the number of items in the list. Then here, I think we'll also use context and get the index of each item while you're looping through it. And then we can return a list style. List style with the text, the title of text. Then we'll have snapshot data. Then you can get the index of the product that we are interested in, and then get the name. And maybe you can also show the cost at the subtitle level. So we'll have text. So I'll just copy this. And here, instead of name, I will use the cost. Okay. I think since we don't have, basically what we've done is that we have got the token, we've stored the token, but we've not used it to authenticate this request. So what we're going to do with that is that we're going to build another interceptor that will intercept any request that goes out and append the token, so that the error, so that we don't have this error, so that the request is actually authenticated. So we'll create another interceptor. We'll call this an auth interceptor. Put that. So it will be another class named auth interceptor. And remember that it has to extend the interceptor class provided by DIO. So here we'll say on request, and then before, so first of all, we will want to see if this is not the login request, then we append the authentication token. So what we'll do is that we'll say the options path is usually the URL that is going out. So we'll check if it contains, if it does not contain login. So basically, if that URL does not contain the word login, then I think that's where we'll need to use the token. So we'll say we'll use shared preferences again. I think this has to be an asynchronous method for us to go ahead with that. So we'll await for shared preferences, get the instance, then use prefs dot get string named token. So basically it will go and fetch our token from shared preferences. Maybe this may not be the best way to do it, because instead of fetching every time, you may want to store it somewhere using, say, provider, and provide when it's needed, so that it doesn't go every time to fetch from disk. But for this specific demo, that's what you're going to do. Now what we do is go to our headers and then look for HTTP headers. No, I don't think I need this. HTTP headers from DIO. I think I'll just allow it, and then look for the authorization header, and then set it as to be our bearer, to be our token. So we'll use bearer, and then we'll set the token. Or if the token is empty, we'll just set an empty string so that it sends that ahead. So I think that's that. Where is the error coming from? Okay, I'm supposed to check now. So if we do this, then we do a hot reload. We may need to do a hot restart. Oh, sorry. I think what we forgot to do is add this interceptor. So what we can do is add the interceptor, auth interceptor. Then it will intercept every request that goes out and check that. So let's log in again. And then Bruno. So now we've been able to, number one, the authenticator was able to intercept that request, put the token, and then now the request was valid. And also, if we have errors from the server, the error interceptor will intercept the error and respond. So I think that covers most of what we have. I've always, in fact, I think I've never used HTTP, the HTTP package to access. I think I've always developed my apps using DIO because it has these interceptors. And number one, if I have another app, I can just copy these interceptors and actually the whole of my utilities functions, the REST client plus the interceptors. And I can transfer it to my next project and start working on it directly because I know I have handled all the errors, I have handled authentication. Basically, I may need just change a few things. Then I develop my services and start using it. Another advantage is that DIO has a lot of plugins that you can just plug into DIO and use it. For example, if you want to cache the request, you may use this. If you want to, for example, you want to log, let's just try out this one. So this is called Pretty DIO Logger. The advantage that it has is that it logs, instead of using Stato the way we've been using it here, to actually check our requests. So basically, if you can see here, sorry about that. Let's move it down. So if you are looking at this, you'll be able to see every request that is coming in using just your Chrome Dev Tools. But you may want to also show the requests in your console. In that case, we will use that package. So let's just install it. So here we put that Pretty DIO Logger. It's just as simple as that. Get the package, come to our REST client, and add another interceptor. What I usually do is that I usually want to only use the logger interceptor if I'm in debug mode. So I may do this, and then we'll say we'll also add another interceptor. So go to interceptors, then we can add the Pretty DIO Logger interceptor. I think we can just copy from the README here and get this. So it has several options. Do you want to log the request header? Do you want to log the body? Do you want to log the response body or the response header? All this information. So all we need to do is just come here and paste it there, and we have an interceptor there that will intercept and log every request that comes in through our app. So I think I'll just restart. I think that should do it. No, I have to start afresh. So the advantage of using DIO is that it has so many plugins that you can use. We can also test, we will also test out this cache interceptor, which will intercept the request. And if it sees that you have the response cached, it will respond with that response. And if you don't have the response cached, then it will go fetch and cache that response that comes in. So I think let's first of all test and see that Pretty DIO Logger is working. Now it's still waiting for it to build. In the meantime, if you have any questions, maybe you can just start posting on the chat so that Eric or Candy will go through them and let us know of any questions that we have. So we're looking at Bruno. Then this name is Bruno. Then you will see that it's every response that we have, that is going through our app is being logged here. For example, this is our auth. For example, this is our auth request. This is the body. That's the response that we got back is this token. You see, it gives us everything that has been going on through our HTTP request. So basically, that's pretty DIO logger. That's what it does. And the last thing is that now we are going to cache these responses for the. You can see that every time I'm trying to rebuild, it is requesting for the product again and again and again from the server. So what we may want to do is cache the response for a given time. So I think we'll just go to the HTTP DIO cache, get the latest version and install. You can run pub-get. I think installing this will make us, what it uses currently is, I think by default it uses SQLite to cache your data. It has an internal mechanism of doing that. So that means we'll have to rebuild the app again. So in the meantime, while it's rebuilding, you can just continue setting it up. So all I need to do is to come, I'll copy this. I'm gonna come to my REST client and add another interceptor. I think this base URL is not of use to us. You can put all the configuration that you want for your cache. Maybe it has so many options that you can use. Let's first install it or import it. That's that. So this cache configuration is where you will configure your cache. Maybe you want to change the options. Let's just go to the app and see. So cache options, you may want to change, instead of saving to disk, you may want to save it to memory cache or any other. Maybe you may want to set your own parameters. So that's where this is where you would do that. You can configure your cache from here. Now the last thing you need to do for it to be cached is come to our product service where we are fetching the data. Then we can do options, then build options, build cache options. Then you're supposed to set the maximum edge that cache is supposed to last for. So it's supposed to be a duration. For example, we are going to use 120 seconds, so that 2 minutes. In the next 2 minutes, if we receive a request through this app or through this, we will try to fetch all products. We will get the response from that cache instead of getting the response from the server, instead of fetching again. So this interceptor will only affect, it will only affect this specific request. That's why we are setting it here, and we're not setting it in our REST client. So here it will just look for any request that has that enabled, caching enabled, and it will cache it. Remember also that the order of your interceptors is important, because it will start by auth interceptor, it will go to the error interceptor, then it will go to the next. That is usually how it does. So, and you can also make your own interceptors if you want. Remember that you just don't have to use the ones that are provided on pub.dev. You can always build your own. In fact, before I discovered the DIO cache manager, or I think before it was actually published, I used to use my own cache interceptor. But developing a cache interceptor entails a lot of work, and I didn't see the reason for me doing it every other time in every other project. So I think this plugin for the interceptor is actually a good one. So let's just observe our, because we'll rebuild it. I think it died. So let's just observe our requests as they go out. You can see the login has gone in, then the product has worked. Then let's try to rebuild and see. You can see that it's logging the request here, because pretty.dir logger will log the request it received. But if you check on Chrome DevTools, there's no other request coming in. Basically, it's because it has used the one in cache. So basically, that's it from me. And if you want to see any other, there are so many plugins that you can use with DIO. So all you need to do is just search DIO. This is a cool one you can use to cache. If you're using for web, you can do your cookie management here. Pretty.dir log, as we've seen, it just logs to your console log so that you can be able to see that. There are so many others. If you want to retry the request, if it fails for the first time and you want to retry again, maybe you can use that. Fresh.dio, actually, what it does is that if you have a refresh token, then you would use this package to actually refresh your token and have a new one. So there are so many packages that you can use with DIO so that your development process will be so easy compared to maybe using the native provided HTTP class. Let's just go through how you would create your own, say, custom cache manager. Let's say, for example, or a cache interceptor. Let's say, for example, I want to build my own custom. I'm not going to do the whole implementation. I'm just going to show you how you do it. So custom cache interceptor. Like that. So we'll do a class, call it custom cache interceptor, which you'll have to extend the interceptor class, that one. And then you'll do on request. This is where you'll put your logic to check if the data exists in your cache and respond with that. So basically, you'll just respond with the request with the data that is in cache from here. Now, if you don't do that, basically you just put an if here to see. If it doesn't exist, then it will go ahead and fetch from the server, and then you will have to put another interceptor here, which will intercept now the response. Now here will now store the cached response. Then finally you come here to your REST client and maybe add your custom cache interceptor, and that's all. You can use the cache interceptor. You can chain as many interceptors as you want to do whatever things you want. And so basically, if you have to handle errors, to handle requests before they go out, to handle responses before they come in, everything of that. If you want to, let's say, transform the response that you are getting into another shape, maybe you have something that is nested and you want to get it, then reconstruct it before it goes back to the app. This way you handle it, and that is it from me, I think. Also, the last thing I can mention is that Stetho is a good library, but it's only works in Android. So if you're using iOS, you may have to use the one that is provided by DevTools, by Flutter DevTools. I think it has a good one, but it lacks quite a number of features. Maybe you can't see the responses that that are in. Just go through it. You'll come to network. Then we'll try to. Our response is cached. So let's see if it will show. We'll have to record first. Also, the last thing everything is the last thing I'm mentioning. Okay. Also, you can, within your DIO cache interceptor, you can also, for example, for a product, if you want, say, someone to pull down to refresh or something like that, you may want to ignore the cache altogether, and so you just use force refresh and set it to true. If you set it to true, then that means it will not check whatever is in cache. If you look at the documentation for the cache interceptor, you'll see that if you've enabled force refresh, first it will check the data from the network, and if it fails and there's still data that is still valid in your cache, then it will fetch that. So that's what force refresh does. So I think with that, I'm done. If there's any questions, I may respond to them now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Danvik. This was a very amazing session. We have a question though from Robert. He's asking, what are your best practices or packages for JSON encoding or decoding for REST upload?
Okay, I used to use this built value. I used to use built value, but it's quite a heavy package. It has a lot of things. Maybe you may not want it. You may not find it appealing to you. But I think the developer of Provider has also developed another one called Freezed. And Freezed is a good one. It's actually a very short one that you can use to convert your responses, JSON responses to and from JSON. Okay, basically your requests to and from JSON. I think this is a good one. Of late, I'm actually just using this one. It's a very good one and it's very extensible. And given that it's developed by, I think it's developed by Remy, is it? Yeah, so it's developed by the same guy who has developed Provider, Riverpod, and all these other amazing state management options. Yeah, so same guy. So I really trust it now. The other one is it's a bit heavy.
Okay, we also have another one. This was an earlier one. I think you answered this in your session. What are the benefits of using DIO over HTTP?
The biggest advantage for me is interceptors, because I can intercept my requests and do anything with them. I can massage the data the way I want before it goes out, or before it comes in. I can, like for example, for the error interceptor, I can intercept the error, make sense out of the message from the request, from the response that I get before I send it along to the user. So I think that is one of the biggest ones. For example, if you have if you're getting 404 sometimes will return to you a HTML page. What will you do with a HTML page in Flutter? You can just say, if it's the status code is 404, then just say page not found. So for example, I'll just use it here. So say if the error.response.status code is equal to 404 or 500, we can intercept anything here. And now you can always do this. I think I'll put it down here. So if it's 4.4, override the error and say page not found. Instead of having instead of having that HTML page, you can just say page not found, or find a better response that the user will find useful than page not found. Say product not found or anything like that. Then for that case, you'd have given a user what is actually more useful to them than a 4.4 page or all these ambiguous errors that the user may receive. Any other question?
Yes, there is this one from Kevin Mulungu is asking, what do you use to show sweet alert?
To
show sweet alert.
Sweet alert.
Yeah.
I think that question is a bit self-answering, because there are so many options for alerts. But if you want sweet alert, I haven't used sweet alert so much in Flutter. Normally, I just use there's a good Flash package provided by someone in it. But I think sweet alert, I think it's still there. I don't know if it was named.
Yeah, I see sweet alert also has its own package.
Yeah, I think someone has developed one for sweet alert. I think there are actually too many to choose from, because there are so many sweet alert options that you have. Like, let's say this one, there's this one, there are so many. Maybe you'll just look for the one that has the most, the highest score, and probably that's the most liked or the most used. Then I think there. So when they're learning any package, make sure you check this, the popularity, health, especially health and maintenance. You don't really care much about popularity, though it may help. And then check the health and maintenance, whether it's being maintained. Like anything below 90 for health and maintenance, I think it is cause for concern. You may want to look for a package that is well maintained and has good code.
Okay, thank you. Also, I also wanted to ask, like, what are the ways that you go to building your own package?
Okay. So number one, look for something that, I know Flutter is it's relatively new anyway. So there are many holes to plug. So for example, I saw the way Flutter forms, the way it works, it doesn't work so well. So I developed my own package to do that, and it has received quite a number of users. So you look for something that don't just develop another widget for let's say a button and put it out there. I don't think people may want it, because Flutter allows you to customize things the way you want. So maybe if you're just developing a small widget that does something that is very specific to your package, I think that is not very helpful. So number one, you come to pub.dev. I think it has a very good documentation on how to develop a package and how to publish a package. So developing a package, you'll see they will categorize for you the difference. They will basically show you the difference between packages and a plugin. So packages are usually like only that packages, only that dependencies that are built on only in that. For example, my plugin is a package. My package is a package, and the plugin is anything that interacts with the platform channels. For example, now that will need you to have knowledge of, let's say, Kotlin and Swift. So basically, you just follow this very good documentation here to see how you'll be able to implement the package. And then there's also this one for seeing how you'll be able to publish now when you're done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I don't see any other questions. Guys, if you have a question, you can still ask. Maybe we give it like 5 more minutes before we end the session. Or any comment, you can unmute and comment if you liked it, and yes. Sure, Patrick, please ask your question. Oh, Patrick has a question about streams. So I feel like this is not a full question. Can you please restructure your question? Yes, you can speak. You just have to unmute. You can unmute his mic.
Just unmute and ask your question.
Yes.
Danvik, are you hearing me?
Clearly.
Yeah, this is Kevin. I was stuck in traffic, but now I'm at home. So basically, I joined the meeting midway, but I've really learned a lot. But I have a question. For me, I started coding in Flutter. Let's say I'll say that I'm like 2 months old. But
Welcome.
I've published 2 apps right now on Play Store, but App Store have been having an issue with Apple. One of the issue that I realized is like, for example, if you are building, you find on the app bar there's usually a checkable banner, isn't it?
Yeah,
that usually comes. That is when you are in the bug, but you can disable it when now you are on. When
in
you
fact,
are
if you build,
yeah.
actually it won't show if
Yeah.
you build for. You don't even need to remove it, because you don't need to manually remove it the way we have done here. What you can do is, if you just build and if you just build an APK, or you build for iOS, it will not show.
Okay, but
unless...
that's not my question.
Okay.
Can you just give me a few seconds to just open some on the door?
Okay.
I'm back. Hello.
Okay. Well.
Okay, so my question was the same way that I disabled that checkable banner on the code. The usually that error that comes when you have errors on the layouts.
Okay.
Sometimes, the device can be, the screen can be large, and when you are developing, maybe you are developing on a large screen.
I see.
So when you run the app on a small screen, you usually get layout errors, isn't it? So,
sure.
Yeah, so my question was, if I wanted to disable those errors.
So the way you build your app is that you build it in a way that you don't use absolute lengths for let's say height and width for your widgets. Try as much as possible to either use media query to put like let's say you have a container, instead of putting it 100 pixels wide, you can instead say I want it to be 100% of the screen or 50% of the screen. You see, that way it's like you're developing for web, because web sometimes there's a change of the size of the browser, and also for mobile there's also the change of the size of the screen, so it will adapt. So try to use adaptive options instead of fixing your width, your basically your dimensions.
Because basically I had used media queries, but this instance happened that when I switched to a small screen, you see something. I'm sure you have that view of, for example, it shows a negative value and an error message. Maybe I was not keen, but I'll just try to check it.
Yeah, just try, and also when you're debugging, try it on different screens. And if you also have a mobile device, try it on the device. Make sure that everything is scalable, no fixed dimensions.
Okay. I had one more question, because mostly I was developing on Android. So for me to handle screens, I usually used fragments.
I see.
To do that. So for example, when I'm developing maybe on the device, let's say I'm using an Android which is 5-inch, and I want my app also to run on a tab, but I want it, when I'm running on a tab, I want the screen to run maybe on the left side it takes a third, and then on the right side it takes 2/3. Yeah. And when you see those are it's called the detail page, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. So for that, to achieve that on Flutter, do you have to read the orientation? Do you have to read the screen size?
You can just use the media query, find the width, and then like say if the width is more than this size, then do this. Basically, you can put some if else statements, so that you can develop maybe separate widgets for a mobile and a separate widget for anything like a tab. Another option is also to use it's called navigation rail. I think it's provided by Flutter in the latest versions of Flutter. So something like navigation rail will actually help you, because it will scale down. Let's say if you have a menu on the left side and you want that menu to be visible on a tab and to hide itself in a mobile small mobile device, you can use that. So that navigation, so that it will take like a percentage of the screen if it's a tab, and it will hide itself and show only when someone has asked for it in mobile.
Okay. I think you've answered my question, because it's like the navigation rail was the thing that I was struggling with.
Yeah, that's very common.
Yeah. Okay, for me, I'm done.
Okay.
If you don't have like those small screens, or you can't get a small emulator, there's this package called device preview. You can preview. Yeah, you can preview to actually from any size of a device, and I think it works well. Yeah, you should try that if you don't have any device to test for small or larger screens.
Okay.
Yeah, I think here it is. So you
I'm
can
just checking on the
with this
device
you
preview.
can actually scale the device the way you want. Maybe for a small device, you can see even here it's being used on a watch to just see how the size will scale depending on the size of. Thanks, Eric, for mentioning this. I think this is quite helpful for anyone who is trying to achieve what you're trying to achieve. Another question? Candy. Okay, I can see. You can follow me on Twitter. I can see Candy has. Yeah.
I have a question. What's the disadvantage of using sized box?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because there was a time I was using the size box when I use on different screens.
Mm-hmm.
I received some problems because of using size box. Is there anything else I can use instead of size box?
Instead of using size box, maybe you can use something like a flex or a spacer. I don't know. I haven't used spacers so much, but basically, if you want to now, let's say the space between the two, between some widgets to be of a fixed width, you can use the sized box. I like sized box. I use it a lot. I haven't had so many issues. Just remember that you don't fix unless it's very necessary. Don't try to fix the widths or the dimensions of your widgets. I think that's the biggest issue you may have.
Okay.
Because I don't see any other issue because I've used the size box for quite a while and I've not had so many issues.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Is there any other questions?
Yeah, we have one more question. Patrick is asking, actually say, I'm streaming data from Faster. When I edit while offline, it edits the streamed data and updates the Faster when I go online. I want to avoid this. That's the question from Patrick.
That's a very interesting question because that's what a Firebase is for. Because what it provides is that you can edit your information. Like, do you want your information just to persist on your device, Patrick? Because I think that is one of the biggest advantages of Firebase, and you're saying you don't want that.
Hello,
Maybe.
this is Patrick.
Okay.
I'm streaming. Actually, I'm streaming the products from the Firestore.
Mm-hmm.
And then every time when I edit it, I want it to be fresh, being fresh from the Firestore. Like, I don't want it to be I don't want to see the cached data. I want to see a fresh. But when I try to edit while offline,
Mm-hmm.
it edits the stream which was cached. I don't want that cached data actually, because if I edit and the network is off and maybe I thought it didn't go through,
Mm-hmm.
it will bring some issues. I want actually I wanted to throw an exception when there is no internet.
I think you may be going the wrong way about this, because what I would advise you is that I think you can check. I think number one, you can disable that offline mode. I'm not very sure. Maybe someone who has experience with that can let us know. I think you can disable the offline mode. Number two, I think for you, if it's an offline mode, just tell the user that it has been successful and don't bother with them, so that Firebase will sync by itself. Is there anyone who has better experience than myself in using Firebase? Maybe you can take up the mantle and answer the question.
I think for his problem, I think he can be checking the network. If he doesn't want it to be done through offline or whatever, you can check the connectivity state, and there's difference between checking if your data or Wi-Fi is on and checking if you're connected to the actual internet. So I think you'll have to check between that.
I think there's a package for that will, instead of checking if you're just having a network connection versus having internet, I think there's a package for that. I forget the name.
I think it's called the data connection checker. I'm sending the
data
link.
connection. Exactly, it's called data connection checker.
Sending the
You can
link.
use that to check whether someone is online. and then send. Sorry, I think I'm looking for it in the wrong place.
I've already shared
Is it
the
data connectivity? Flutter.
No, this data connection checker. I think this is it. Is it correct, Eric?
Yeah,
The
it's that.
connectivity package, the disadvantage with it is that it will show you someone has Wi-Fi connection or data connection. But if they don't have maybe an active connection, maybe you don't have a data package and you just have enabled 4G and you don't have the bundles, it will still show that you are connected to the internet, which may not be the case. So this data connection checker actually checks that you have internet. Behind the scenes, it checks that you have internet before it goes ahead and returns are true or false. So
Go on.
you can use this one if you want to avoid that issue. Maybe try it out and let us know.
Maybe to add on what Danvik was saying, I've used Firebase but not in Flutter. But there is, I'm not sure how the equivalent is, but you can disable what we call you can disable the persistence using like a kind of a variable. Maybe it's not a variable, maybe settings, where you just say, I don't want persistence to be enabled. So that way Firestore will not like save any to your local storage.
Okay,
so you just access it, yeah?
No, I was saying thank you, because I think you may be more experienced in this than myself. So I was just saying thank you for clarifying that.
So you just, I'm not sure how it goes in Flutter, but one thing I saw, like the library is the same. Maybe how it's done in maybe Kotlin or Java is the same way it will be done in Flutter. So we have like a Firestore setting kind of a thing where you just say is persistent enabled. You can say true or false. So in case you really don't want persistent to be enabled, just say false and it will not be saved. And also, in case you have enabled it and you want to listen, like, is this offline data changing? You can always listen to like a specific collection. Using like, yeah, you can get the collection, maybe the collection.get, blah, 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 then add a snapshot listener. And then on the snapshot, you can check the source. If the source is from cache, you can know that maybe we have changes from the cache. If the source is from server, yeah, you can know here we are doing, these are changes like from the server. So just that is just to shed some light on that issue.
Thank you very much, Harun. So another thing I wanted to mention is that if you're using, say, Firebase for performance monitoring, there's also a DIO package that will help you do that. I think I forgot to mention this. Basically, if you want to check the performance of your REST requests, maybe I'll try find time and prepare a talk on basically performance monitoring for your Flutter app using Firebase, performance, Crashlytics, and analytics for anyone who may be interested. So if you're using that specific feature, you can use the IO Firebase performance to monitor the HTTP requests. How many are failing? How much time does it take to respond to your request, and so on. Those things may be helpful for someone who wants to monitor how users in the wild are using their apps.
Yeah, so I've shared the link to the online from the Firebase site, so maybe you can have a look and do a replica of the same in the language that you're trying to achieve.
I don't think there's a very big difference in terms of the API between Firebase in Flutter and Firebase in any other platform. I think they try as much as possible to make the API similar as possible. So you can still use the same information that Harun has shared to achieve what you're trying to achieve in Flutter. Any other question?
Hello.
Hello.
Danvik.
Yes.
Yeah, one more. There's an experience that happened to me during switching of screens. Like
Okay.
I'm navigating from one screen to another and I want to pass data. So I want to know from you guys on your end, how do you deal with it the recommended way? Let's say I want to load data from a network. Do I load it first before navigating to the next screen, or when I'm navigated to the next screen is when I load the data?
I think if you have the data, you can just pass it to the as a parameter to the next screen. I think that's how I usually do it, unless
You first load the data and then you navigate to the next screen.
Yeah, that's my preferred way. Because, for example, for this app I'm working, we've used for this tutorial, you can maybe load the items that are there. These are the products. Then when you click this product, maybe you have a detailed page. You can pass that information, that product as a whole, that class, instead of fetching. You see, fetching is another latency consumer. So maybe you might want to just use it the way it is. You use the package, you use the data that has already come in. Unless the data is not complete and you want to fetch now the complete data set, then you can do a fetch.
Okay, and then the last one.
Okay.
Let's say for an instance where you are using either what is it called, stored preference. Those are, I've forgotten the name, but those where you store your data. So I want to maybe check if a user has a token. I've stored that token on the internal DB. So an instance which occurred to me is when I'm on my screen. Maybe I'm checking it on the build method, because there where I learned, I saw someone doing like that. You check on the build function. So when I'm checking it on a build function, I realize that function which checks if the token really exists is being run like multiple times until it's blocked when you check the logs.
I think you'd prefer, for something like that you want to just require once, you may prefer to put it in your init state. Let me just
on the init, it means you'll have access to the stored preference.
Yeah, what you can do is that I think you can put it in your init state. Maybe because init state cannot be asynchronous, maybe you can just put a.
That's the question why, because I realize that it can't. So where can you do it?
I'd prefer also that instead of, you can declare shared preference, you can put your shared preferences instead of declaring every time you want to use it, the way we did today for this specific here. Instead of awaiting every time, you can put it in a provider, declare once and put it in a provider, or use a package like get it, which is a service locator, so that you just fetch it. You have access to shared preferences once, because what you need to initialize shared preferences is this, and this is the one this is the part that is asynchronous. So maybe you can declare these shared preferences once and use it throughout the app, one single instance. That way you can just access the preferences directly instead of doing that. And also there's other option I've told you about. You can say declare as a token here. Token. Then while you're initting, you can actually fetch the token. Now, but this, for me, I wouldn't prefer this method, though it still works anyway.
It works. Because the way I said is like using a provider is the best solution.
Yeah.
Because the async behavior will not work on the init state.
Yeah. So for that, you'll have initialized the shared preferences instance once. So elsewhere you just fetch using Let me just say fetch here. So if you declare it once, you will have the same instance throughout the app. So you won't be able to, it won't be asynchronous and it won't be asking anymore. But still, I would prefer that you put it in your init state, your function to fetch the token. Or you can use something called async memorizer. Let me just look for it. And what an async memorizer does is that it fetches the data. When you fetch the data once, it stores it in memory. Then when you ask it again, it will just fetch from memory. So I think it's called async. Also, there's a problem usually when you're using feature builder, because feature builder also rebuilds every time. So what you can use is this. It's called async memorizer. Let me just use one that has an example. Nope. So basically, if you have something like a feature builder that builds every other time, what you do is that you use, let me see where it is. I prefer using streams than futures because of that, actually. Because a stream mostly will store the information, and like basically if you're using, I think async memorizer has a function called run once, so that let's say you want to fetch data from just go look at async memorizer. If you want to fetch data from cache or from an asynchronous method, you can just put it like, you can declare as an async memorizer, then use the function run once and fetch it here. The next time you try to fetch from the async memorizer, what it will do is it will just hand you the information that was already stored. So there are several ways of doing this same thing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I think you can read the message from Robert. I think I tried to explain the previous question.
Okay. I think Robert has explained further about passing data to your screen, and I think it makes more sense than what I said. So you can just have a read at what he has shared in the chat. Anyone who is interested, because basically, if you think this is more testable if you look at it from that perspective. Fetching from the screen that needs the data. Shall we call it a day, because I think we are out of time and out of questions. Candy?
Yes. Okay, I think this is amazing. We've come to the end of our session. Yes, did I just exit? Oh, all right. Sorry, guys. I thought I exited the group while talking. Thank you so much, Danvik, for giving us today's codelab and the sessions. And thank you so much, guys, for participating and asking questions and and giving solutions also. We really appreciate that, and we're hoping to have you guys next Friday for the next session. I've shared Danvik's Twitter account, so if you have more questions, maybe you can reach out to him via Twitter. Thank you, guys, and thank you for attending the meeting. You are free to leave. Bye.
Okay, also take note that we'll be using Zoom from now on. You remember the experience we had with Meet? So we'll be using Zoom. Anyone who is new, We'll always be using Zoom. I think we are done with the Google Meet for now.
Yes.
So thank you.
Yes.
Have a good evening. Have a good morning from whichever side of the world you are.
Yes. And thank you so much to Apps Lab for giving us the Zoom account.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.